All right, back for another episode of Get Better Every Day with Matt Gouge. I'm excited to have my buddy John Brandy from Simple Success. Thanks for joining us, John.
Well, thank you, Matt. I'm pleased to be here.
Yeah, Simple Success. I like the sound of it. Let people know, who you are, what you're up to, and maybe just a 30, 60-second intro of who you are.
Well, I am a podcaster who has done a few other things in life, like I've been in the Air Force. I've worked for Microsoft. I have always been a fan of language and learning and physical health as well, and spent many years as a financial advisor, which led to the podcast.
Sweet, sweet. Tell us a little bit, as founder of Simple Success, what you're doing with that, what the, kind of mission is behind it. And then I'd love to chat about where I think, we're aligned in our thinking on, how it relates to getting better every day.
Absolutely. The the driver for the podcast initially was, having spent so many years as a financial advisor, I learned how to look behind the scenes a little bit for the psychology, the driver, what the person's goal was, what they really wanted to achieve. And also, I listened to N number of podcasts, and I heard lots of podcasts that were standard financial advice that you could get from a lot of different places. And my other motive of this was combining this with a positive mental attitude approach to things like Think and Grow Rich is a big driver of a lot of the ways I think. And there's a lot of spinoffs from that, as you well know. And there are a few podcasts that focus on that, and there are hundreds of podcasts that focus on the financial advice, but there aren't any, other than what I'm doing, that I've found that merge the two together and say, you can do this seemingly difficult financial thing without already having $1 million. All you need is confidence and coaching and support and clearly defined goals and the patience to achieve it over time.
Right. Yeah, I think.
And I didn't hear that coming from any other podcasts, so I wanted that to be a driver.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's important too. And I think about my mortgage business, right? And how keeping it simple really lands with a lot more people than getting into mortgage-backed securities and the yields and the fancy stuff that we can talk about, right? I think for the average person, when it comes to financial investing, and it sounds like what you're saying, it's more of a mental thing with getting into an investment mindset than it is understanding the complexities of all the tools that are being used, right? The daily habits and whatnot. So what have you found since you've worked in that field, really helps people the most when it comes to, just financial success in general?
What helps people the most is a feeling of success, I think. There's a modification on a common piece of knowledge from it's almost a joke now, but it goes like, nothing succeeds like success. But it because it engenders confidence in what you're about to do. When you have a successful approach to whatever your goal happens to be, if it's financial or if it's health or whatever, if you learn how to take it in little increments and get there patiently and consistently and slowly, it will work, and you can do it without having a ton of resources to start with. So that you could meet anybody on the street and say, you and I are going to have a successful day, and we're going to start with return on investment, or something that seems like it's a difficult topic, But when you translate it into something simple, it's not that hard at all.
Yeah, I like that. What I'm going to pull out of that for listeners is celebrate the small successes. And like
Yeah.
you said, it relates to a lot of different things. If it's financial, it's like, can you put $250 a month into this account? And then after a year, you get to look back and go, you know what? I deposited 250 a month. That 3,000 has
Mm-hmm.
grown into 3174. Now I'm going to challenge
Mm-hmm.
myself to do the next thing, but you celebrate the small win just as you would. I'm going to challenge myself to get into the gym 3 days a week and work out for 30 minutes. And then you track
Mm-hmm.
that, and then you celebrate those small wins. It's not like you're going to win, a CrossFit competition next month, right? But by setting small goals and celebrating those small wins, that's how you achieve big results. And that shines true in any conversation I have about getting better every day, which is what I'm trying to pull out of folks. Is people have accomplished amazing things. Normal people who just got a little bit better every day. You mentioned something to me about 1% better every day. I'd like to elaborate on that because I'm curious on what we started to talk about. I said, wait, let's talk about this on the pod. 1% better
Okay.
every day.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is, again, it is a common idea if you already know to look for it. So it's represent, and I say that because it's, if you Googled it, you might find a whole number of different things that relate to it. They might be sports related, they might be money related, they might be anything. But the idea is patience and self forgiveness. So, and simplifying the way I tie it in is because whenever I say the word math, it's deer in the headlights. Okay. For most people, this is like, wait a minute, you're about to go into something really difficult. That's why I came to you when I was a financial advisor. People would say, how do you deal with all the math of that? And it's like, well, the math in financial advising, and maybe this is true in mortgage too, is multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, and that's about it. There's no trigonometry or calculus in there, right? No geometry, none of that stuff. So here, the 1% better is it is math, but I'm about to translate it into something easy, and that is 1%. I did this on an Excel spreadsheet. Take any number, doesn't matter what it is, and you increase that number by 1% and call it one day. Okay, and then you just iteratively do that again. So that it's 1% more the next day and 1% more than that the next day. It's tiny, almost imperceptible how, what you have to do to make it, to do that. But when you work out the math patiently over the long term, 1% every day is 37 times better after just 1 year.
Wow. Yeah.
It really,
that's like, for people who have heard that the power of compounding. Who was it that said like compounding is the eighth wonder of the world?
that's Albert Einstein.
Right. And for everybody listening, I know some people understand it, but I'm used to, in my mortgage business, trying to boil it down so that a fifth grader understands it. Compounding
Right.
means that if you take 100 and you increase it by 1%, the next day you're 101. Then you
Mm-hmm.
increase that 101 by 1%. It's not 102 because you're increasing 1% on 101. So it's 102
Correct.
point, and that little fraction,
Right.
that little
Correct.
bit of compounding over time takes 100 up to, what would that be, 3,700, John? It's
Yeah.
37
Yeah.
times after a year, which
Yeah.
is amazing because of the compound effect of it, which I wholeheartedly believe. No matter what you're doing in your life, whether it's trying to get better at a certain sport or in health in general, if you're trying to get better in a business, if you're trying to get better with your relationships, if you're trying to get better at anything, getting a little bit better every day is how anybody who you look up to, who's in a position that you want to be in. I want to have my business be that successful. I want to have my marriage be that good. I want to be that good of a dad. I want this much in the bank, whatever it is. That person took incremental steps. That person got a little bit towards their goal every day. They didn't wake up and have a multi-million-dollar business. They didn't wake up with 6-pack abs, right? It was years in the making. And, I think I've managed to get this into every single podcast I've recorded. People they overestimate what they can do in a year, and they underestimate what they can do in a decade. Over a decade time, I'd be curious too. I'm going to have to do it now because I'm a math nerd. What that incremental 1% a day would be over a decade, right? Because you said you're going to 37x it over a year, over a decade. I'm sure that somebody could get 1,000x results or whatever the number is in whatever area of their life they'd like. So that's awesome, man.
And the key is to anything like that is to not worry about how you're going to feel tomorrow as compared to today. It's sitting back and saying, my goal is to be 37 times better 12 months from now. And I'm just going to be calm about what happens between today and tomorrow and know that it's going to work out as long as I am patient and kind to myself.
I'm moving in the right direction. Yeah, I'm not going to weigh myself every 4 hours.
and here's another example. So I have a daily goal of 12,000 steps every single day. Now that's going to vary from one person to another based on their stride length, but it's about 6 miles. Did I start there? I did not even close. When I first started, which was in 2015, 7 years ago, I was doing 5,000 steps a day. And I had people just like, how do you do that much? Well, and then it was a stretch. But now I do that much before breakfast. But it took 7 years to get there. It wasn't like I started 5,000 steps on Monday. By the end of the week, I had to be at 12 or die. But that's where most people's mindset goes. There is it's no surprise when you think about it that way that on January 2nd, you can't find a parking place at the gym. But on February 1st, no problem.
Oh man, there's memes galore on the internet about how packed it is on January 1 and 2, and then by Super Bowl, early February, you can rest assured.
No problem. The
machines will be free. That's awesome, man. I personally love success stories. So I'm going to ask you if you have any that would align with this conversation, of somebody that you've worked with, maybe something in your life that you found success with, where, getting better every day, these small 1% incremental changes yielded a big result. Because, like you said, if people stay focused on the big result and they know their end destination, you get better every day and you take strides towards it, but don't look for, something every single day. Grant yourself some grace. Any stories come to mind, John?
Yeah. And it ties back again to the patience and being willing to go forward and try something that you may not be entirely comfortable with yet. Giving yourself, this is the key, giving yourself the comfort in knowing that it's okay because you've taken a step toward being better. So, specifically, one of my first jobs after graduating from high school was as a recording engineer. And at the place that I did this, I was hired to be at a level twice as important as where I thought I was being hired. And I didn't discover this for a few days, after which I had to say, I need to either step up or say I'm over my head. And what I did was I learned to step up. And that's 40 years ago. Okay. But I feel a ton more confident in what I'm doing now because I stepped up then.
Right.
And that's patience. Now, I won't say that I had that kind of patience at the time, but it evolved into that, and I benefit from it. And that's what we all need to do, is just slow down and say, I can do this. I can do this.
Yeah.
I can be successful in my job or my marriage or my finances or whatever. I can.
What really stuck out to me, and what I want to pull out for listeners, is that you were uncomfortable. I could feel
I
that.
was.
Right. And that's where true growth, in my opinion, happens. Every time I've felt uncomfortable, whether it was a conversation with my wife that had to be had that made our marriage stronger, whether it was the realization that I could step up and be a better dad, whether it was, you know what, I'm really not eating that well. That's why I don't have the health results that I want. Whether it was, a business thing, no matter what, like, growth is not comfortable. But if you can get used to saying, you know what, like you said, I've got to step up or step out. And you choose stepping up enough times in a row, stepping up is that 1% forward. Stepping up is getting better every day. I love that, man. That's got me fired up. I think that's a good place to end it. Is there anything you'd like to shout out before we go? Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day today. I know we've got the Simple Success podcast, and people can find that, anywhere they stream podcasts. Anything else that you'd like to shout out today?
I think that, well, I would like people to know about, of course, that podcast, as well as I do another one called A Choice Voice. Both of them are weekly. And the Choice Voice is great speeches read by other people for the vocal practice, which leads into the same topic, because I've done that to get better at speaking in that slow 1% better fashion. So I've gotten better every day in speaking by doing that. So it does tie together. I'd like people to listen to both of those and give you some feedback and
A Choice
some ideas
Voice
as well.
That's what it is. All right. I'm going to check out A Choice Voice today, and A Simple Success. John Brandy, thanks again for your time, man. I appreciate you coming on, and we'll chat soon.
Well, thank you, Matt, for having me. Appreciate it.